Hello, hello. My name is Headbob, and this will serve as a commentary video for the 33841 Speedrun of Pokemon X that I got a couple weeks ago. Um, that run was offline, and my mic was muted, so I couldn't really talk about the run as it was happening. Um, so I figured I would do this just so um, there's some sort of, I wanted there to be some sort of um, teachable run in terms of the new route that came out a couple months ago. And it hasn't really happened yet. It's kind of just if you've been running the game while this route has been being developed, then you know stuff. But otherwise, you probably don't really have a great idea of what is going on with this new route. So we'll talk about more of the new route stuff later as it happens. But um, for now, well, we have something as a result of the new route right now. We're changing our time not to a specific date, which we were doing before, um, but all that's really important. There's benefits to a specific date, but we want our time to be set here. So we'll see me do that. I'm gonna set it to 23:06 or 11:06 p.m. And the reason for that is we want there to be no wind on the way towards the power plant on the Badlands route on Route 14, which is right after the fourth gym. And the reason for that is because traversing that route on the bike with wind up becomes a lot more difficult. So we'd have to use the roller skates, which is both slower and can cause problems. You can run into an encounter inadvertently, um, as well as not getting hail for a rival fight in a later town as well. That is a much bigger window time wise, but that's also important. Before, we were also setting our time so that we can get massages for friendship. Ideally, you want to get two, one before it rolls over in the day and one afterwards. But now that's completely obsolete because we don't need the lucky egg at all. So I picked the girl here. The girl is quite a bit better for the Hawlucha route, for the Hawlucha portion of the route, because one of the rival fights leads a Meowstic with minus speed nature. And what that means is nearly all Hawluchas will outspeed it, which for that fight is really important. It makes the fight a lot more manageable. If that weren't the case, then the bar probably would have been like middle to high IV speed with neutral nature, which is actually pretty high bar to clear, believe it or not. And we nicknamed ourselves one character. More stuff about that later, but generally, the less characters that you have to print on the screen, the faster it is. It's less relevant for later gen games like Gen 6 and Gen 7 like this, because the text speed is very quick, so it definitely saves a lot less time than it would in, say, an early gen game. But, especially in the case where like you have to nickname your protagonist something, you might as well make it one character. And we also set our text to fast, animations off, battle style to set, and L equals A on, which makes the L button an additional A button for the purposes of mashing, which is useful in points. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about the XY route before this new route came out. And so basically it all comes down to the lucky egg. So lucky egg is an item that multiplies experience gain by 1.5x on every single instance of experience. So over the course of the run, that really stacks up, and you end up losing, or you end up gaining with the lucky egg. You end up gaining about 8 levels worth of experience. um, which is a pretty big deal for offensive, defensive speed ranges. It's quite a big deal. However, the requirement to get the Lucky Egg is to have a Pokemon with maximum friendship, 255, which by the point that it's offered at is actually a pretty high bar to clear. So we have to do a lot in order to get to that point. So some of the things we do to get the Lucky Egg on the previous route is we catch Hawlucha in a Luxury Ball, which Luxury Ball is effectively just like a Pokeball in terms of catch rate. So it makes the catch a lot less consistent. So by not doing that, we can afford to catch it in a better Pokeball, so that we can get through that point in the game a lot more consistently. So that's a huge deal. That's a lot of time saved on average. Then on top of that, we have picking up the Soothe Bell in City afterwards, Shallower City, which that's in a house by itself. You have to equip it and then use a bunch of vitamins. So that's probably about 15 seconds of time loss. I can find the exact number, just for accuracy's sake. Oh, well, I have the timing for skipping the Soothe Bell, equipping the Soothe Bell, using HP up and Iron altogether is 24 seconds. And then, as noted, we skip 2 different vitamins, the HP up and the Iron. HP up 10 seconds to get, Iron 5.5 seconds to get. So we skip picking up all of those. So that's about what? Math, don't fail me now. 38.5 seconds that you save just there with those 2 vitamins and the Soothe Bell. And then as well, we skip going into a house earlier on to pick up an item called Sweethearts, which that was the other reason we were setting our date before. We wanted it to be Valentine's Day, so that you get 5 Sweethearts instead of 1, and Sweethearts will increase, they're basically like a potion, and they increase your friendship by 1. So we don't really have the need for the potion all that much, and the time loss of getting it is actually pretty substantial. And then lastly, we skip an Oranberry pickup inside Parfum Palace, because the capture on Hawlucha is now significantly better, and that was what the purpose was for, is to not die to the Hawlucha catch. But now we don't really need that particularly. So yeah, that's the gist of the Lucky Egg route. And so by skipping it all together, you save about what is it? It's about 4 minutes all in for skipping the Lucky Egg. So you basically just have to lose less than that, having lower level and getting worse fights. And we'll see how those fights go over the course of the night. So, I didn't mention before, so you picked Chespin when that happened. And the reason for that is Chespin, by picking a specific starter, you give both of your other rivals the other ones, basically. And so the essence of it is that Chespin's evolution, is the one we want to see on the rivals the least on this current route. And so, yeah, because killing Chestnut is a little difficult for Lucario. It can kill you in return. And then, as well, Chespin is the fight that beats, or the Pokemon that beats the first couple fights that it's used, the only couple fights that it's used, consistently fast. Because it has a very powerful stab, 45 base power Vine Whip. So that's why I picked Chespin. We're going to be switching off of Chespin pretty soon, unfortunately. So it's not that it's a particularly good main Pokemon. We're going to be switching for what will be this Bunnelby. We got our Bunnelby first encounter. It's a 20% encounter. And later on we're going to trade this Bunnelby for a Farfetch'd. And Farfetch'd handles the portion of the game through Hawlucha very nicely. That comes at a much higher level, gets boosted experience from being a trade Pokemon. You can teach it Swords Dance that already has Aerial Ace, which is very powerful. And yeah, so that's why we do that. Yeah, Chespin has some problems doing the portion of the game past Viola. It gets Rollout, and that's kind of its most powerful move that it will get. And so you have to rely on the accuracy of Rollout for a substantial amount of time. So this part of the game is very much like one of the biggest reset points in the game now. Like, Hawlucha still exists, of course, but just the fact that a lot of runs will die before Viola, just the pace. And that's because we really want our Bunnelby in 3 encounters or less, which is, you're unfavored to get that. It's about 48 to 49% to get a Bunnelby within the first 3 encounters, so that's a good amount of your reset RNG. And then on top of that, depending on how good or bad your Bunnelby is, you want to reset encounters in this forest as well. I got a first encounter Bunnelby, so I could afford to take maybe 1 or 2 more than what I got here in terms of encounters. Typically, I like to reset 5 encounters total before this next trainer, and this was only 3, so fine for the most part. And one thing you may have noticed me do there, that I will be doing hopefully whenever possible, is talk to trainers diagonally. It generally saves steps. And it's the same principle in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire as well, except in that game the diagonals are easier because you can just like be a tile diagonal from a trainer in that game and just talk to them no matter which direction you're facing. Meanwhile, in this game you have to be angled diagonally in order to talk to them diagonally. So you have to set it up in advance. So XY diagonals are harder than Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, and they, over the course of the run, they will definitely save you a bunch of time. So we've exhausted our time with Chespin, unfortunately. Gonna be moving on to the Farfetch portion, as I mentioned before. And we have some a little tricky movement here, because we are forced to go into the grass for this portion in order to get out of the trainer's visions. And doing that movement without getting any extra grass tiles can be a little tricky. There's some weird movement there. Alright, so we got some trade. I'm gonna get some water. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. So this girl is sitting in front of the gym. She gives us the roller skates when we beat her, which is a very fast way to travel, actually. It has a very high learning curve. So it's, yeah, you can move like pretty quickly with the roller skates because of how you can like boost pretty consistently. Um, so yeah, we're gonna be seeing until we get access to the bike, we're gonna be seeing a lot of roller skates use in the overworld. But for now, we're not in the overworld, so we're gonna be doing this gym puzzle. We just follow the bubbles, you know. And so yeah, so Farfetch'd having, we don't even have Sword Stance yet, but we don't really even need it that much. Just because Stab Aerial Ace is such a powerful attack against these bug-type Pokemon. And if you don't know what Stab is, basically, if your type is the same type as the move you're using, you get a 1.5x power boost. It stands for same type attack bonus. Alright, so this is where we would get to see our Farfetch stats for the first time. 21-18 at level 11 is pretty good for both attack and defense. Really all you want for the attack stat, because the nature is set, it will always be Jolly Nature with perfect IV speed. All you really want for your attack is just to be above like 9 IV, 10 IV. And that's so you can guarantee a damage range on a Bulbasaur in one of the coming fights. That's like the most important part. Although you get some benefits for having like max IV attack, but it's really not that important. So we use the program that you're seeing below on the bottom of the screen to track our Quacklin's IVs just by like inputting various stats at different levels. We can get a better idea of how good or bad our Farfetch'd is. And so we'll get to look again here. Yeah, so part of this is definitely like just like getting an eye for seeing your stats kind of like quickly without wasting too much time. Definitely a big part of, you know, Gen 6, 7 speedruns, 3DS games. So 1633 Viola is about average for what I was going for. Objectively, it's like a very a good early game for sure. But I was being pretty stringent with my early game resets because the RNG you kind of need to get world record at this stage is kind of a little bit tricky, and so you kind of want to have a buffer going into some of the um, tougher parts of the run RNG wise. And so what I'm about to do here is a completely new thing for the route. This was actually the first time I ever did it on this run. Was skipping the house there that gives you, there's a man inside that gives you 3x attacks and 3x defenses. So that is the newest route change that I developed like maybe a day before doing this run. And so that skipping that saves about 16 seconds. So my times on the Sycamore split have been they're a little weird for sure. So the X defenses don't really matter. They put you in positions where you could play a little bit safer with the X defenses in some spots. But really the point of getting those items in the first place or at all is for the X attacks. They just help. X attacks help in certain spots where you basically just rival fights as well as one of the gym leaders, fights that lead out with fake out pretty much every time. And so like having an X attack will still allow you to boost the stats of your Pokemon without without using sword stance because you can't use sword stance since you're about to get flinched by a fake out. So you can still set up even against the threat of fake out. So in some places you do actually sacrifice a turn. Like for example on Karina, the third gym leader, you do tend to sacrifice a turn a good amount as a result of that. You have to set up to +4 instead of +3, since if you just were to sword and stance once, the damage range on the final Pokemon would not be very good. So skipping next attack and just doing the same fight is typically not enough in that case. And additionally, as a result of this, we'll need to pick up an item for a later fight called the Dire Hit. Dire Hit is a very funny item. It almost never gets used in Pokemon speedruns because of how insignificant it is, really. But Dire Hit increases your crit chance by 2 stages. So in this game, on any given move, it would make it it's 1 in 16 to crit by default. It would make it 1 in 2. But if the move is a guaranteed or not guaranteed, it's a high critical hit rate move, like Shadow Claw or Slash or Night Slash, Air Cutter. It goes from 1 in 8, which is the normal amount, to guaranteed to crit after a Dire Hit. So it ends up doing the same amount of damage as an X attack when you use Shadow Claw, which is what we're using in that fight. But the problem is there is no X attacks around that are faster to get than that Dire Hit. So we pick up that Dire Hit as a result. And also what the Dire Hit allows us to do is sometimes, if we get lucky, we can skip Mega Evolving on that fight. If we get good move selection. But we'll talk about that more later when we get to that fight. Also, this was that Bulbasaur that I was mentioning before. If you don't kill that Bulbasaur in one hit, it can use some really nasty moves like Growl or Leech Seed. Both of which extend the fight by 30 seconds at least. Could be pretty much run killing to miss that range. So we're even a Kanto starter here. It matters a little bit what we pick. Not really though, because the case that Bulbasaur is the best for sure in this route. The case in which it matters though is not very likely. It requires you to kind of go for a risky strat. And in that case, it would save a super effective text box, and that's all it is. But Bulbasaur is also swag. You know, in hindsight, I don't really know how we couldn't figure out how that guy was not the main villain of the game. He looks awful menacing. I'd be a little scared of him. Alright, so we have to deposit our Pokemon here because there is a mandatory double battle on the next route. And since we're entering here anyway, Or, well, this is the main priority, but we have to enter here anyway, sell some items, and buy the TM for Sword Stance. It's very important for this route. Sword Stance is by far the best way to set up your Pokemon in the game. Since X items are only +1, and buying X items is both costly in terms of time and actual in-game money. So it's much faster, much faster to use Sword Stance, especially since we can get to teach it on 2 of our Mons. So there's the Farfetch'd and our Hawlucha later. We end up using it on Lucario as well, but it already comes with Sword Stance. So Sword Stance is a very, very, very good move. Very good. Especially for a Pokemon like Farfetch'd, who doesn't really have a lot of base attack. Being able to set up quickly and effectively to +2, +4, +6 attack is very good for the time that we use it. So we picked up Repel earlier. We're gonna end up using it on this route. The reason that we pick up that Repel, there's a couple of reasons. One, it makes the cycles on the roller skaters to follow a little bit more lenient. It puts them in a little bit of a better spot to pass them. We also don't really have the money to buy a Repel after buying the Sword Stance. And also, it would require us, most importantly of all, it would require us going into a separate shopping inventory. Which, I mean, we need a lot more items than just the one Repel anyway. So we're gonna actually do a bigger shopping trip after this route in the next town to get Repel, Super Potions, some status healing items. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So Sword Stance here is kind of neat. It can either Sword Stance or Vice Grip. Sword Stance saves a little bit of time. If you get Sword Stance twice, which is definitely uncommon, you can save having to heal altogether for the next fight. Which, by the way, the next fight is in 10 minutes. So. So this is one of the tougher parts of execution. Lots of trainers. Repel a little bit tight. Just how it works out. But that was okay. That wasn't perfect, wasn't great. And next we're gonna go down and get this star piece. The movement to get this is kind of tricky. Star piece sells for a lot of money, which allows us to actually buy the things we want in the center. And another thing that is an incentive for us is that we want to have less than 1,000 Poké Dollars coming out of that center. And the reason for that is, basically if we don't use it, it'll just kind of get taken from us. Because when you enter the Parfum Palace coming up, there's a $1,000 $1 fee to get in, but also if you don't have that money, he'll just let you in anyway. So you might as well buy some useful stuff with it, and so literally everything we bought there is useful for sure. So yeah, just not wasting money when you can just spend it for free, basically. And we just passed the point. We just passed the point after getting that berry juice. We just passed the point where we would have gotten the sweethearts that I mentioned before. You just enter the house above and you talk to a girl inside. She gives you 5 sweethearts on Valentine's Day. Since we don't really need the friendship, we will not be getting them. And the Oranberry girl is also right here that I mentioned before. We'll run right by her. And also, I haven't really talked about this yet. The roller skates, boosting with that. So basically, how you boost on the roller skates is you move up on your circle pad. And in order to keep the boost up, you have to just do that periodically. You push it up, and then move it back to neutral over time, and then push it up again every like couple seconds, basically. Or you can just swizzle like I just did, and that keeps your same speed for as long as you can hold the swizzle. And how you do that is you push up on the circle pad, like I said, and then you like move the circle pad back a little bit from the up position. It's like you have to hold it in a position between neutral and all the way up. It's like you like have to suspend it in between. And when you do that, that allows you to keep your momentum while you're going in like a straight line. So there are a couple spots where I will try to do that in order to save having to boost over and over again. Do a little puzzle here. You and Shauna kind of like team up. Like you kind of tell Shauna where to stand to push the Furfurrow into a spot where you can capture it and return it to its owner. And this is it. Movement there can be definitely something to practice, that movement. A little precise. But also anything on the roller skates is definitely a learning curve. So now that we've captured the Furfrou, we're gonna go back. We're gonna get a rare candy on the way here. Hidden rare candy. Actually quite important for this route, and also there aren't that many rare candies at all in the early stages of this game, so the fact that there is one there helps us a lot. And we're gonna enter the fireworks show with Shauna. This is like the biggest break in the run that you'll get for a couple hours. You get to take your hands off the DS and just, watch the fireworks for a little bit. Could be kind of nice. All of this just for catching this mansion owner's Furfrou, by the way. Which I don't know, maybe they had a very strong connection that I'm underrating. Maybe it was worth it. So yeah, and in the true footsteps of the Kanto region, we are given the Poke Flute to wake up the Snorlax that is standing in our way. Which is kind of the whole point we even came here. With all due respect to the Furfur that we rescued. Yeah, they're really this section rather, it's pretty much just all execution. It's like the most concentrated execution in the run is the split. There's only 2 fights, right? And the split is 17 minutes long. And there also aren't that many cutscenes either. Cutscenes being like, you know, something where you can just take your hands off the controller and not have to do anything. You're pretty much active for most of the split. Whether it be mashing text away or doing movement or menuing or whatever. So the berry juice we got earlier is gonna come in handy for this next fight. This next fight is actually kind of a little tricky sometimes. You can die like quite a bit of the time. But the berry juice helps you live more cases than you otherwise would. The next fight is what we call in the speedrunning community a true double battle, or what a normal Pokemon fan might call a multi-battle, where you and a partner are against 2 other trainers. So it's not really a double battle in the way that you would think of it, where you send out 2 of your Pokemon. It's a real, true double battle because you're with another trainer entirely, and as such, you can't control what your partner will do. So in some cases, you're kind of relying on your rival to do the right thing on your side of the field. And in some cases, you can just get unlucky, and both of the other things will target your Pokemon, and you can just like die. Most of the scary scenarios arise when Tierno's Corphish uses Sword Stance on turn 1, and you get targeted at least twice. So, as such, our first goal is going to be to defeat said Corphish, because it is the biggest threat in the field, despite the fact that Pikachu uses Thunder Shock. As you can see, even without the Sword Stance, its Vice Grip basically just did as much damage. Which is kind of crazy. Okay, so Corphish attacking the Fletchling there was kind of crucial. We would have liked Fletchling to attack the Corphish there so that we could have gotten our knockoff on the Pikachu. But now Pikachu is going to get a turn. We got static, unfortunately. Getting paralyzed on this fight is like decently likely, probably about 50% overall, with the static chance plus any given Thundershock that he uses on you being 10% to paralyze. It isn't that big of a deal after this fight, since we'll just take a free heal. But during the fight, it can cause us to lose some turns, which can be pretty huge time loss due to paralysis taking effect and your Pokemon not being able to move. We're gonna get a PP up here. For much later, once we have our it's 2 mains from now. The main after the next main we'll be using it on. This section also very high RNG section. Because our Farfetch is only level 16, which even with the boosted trade experience, we are actually still underleveled compared to the Pokemon we're going to be fighting soon. And in the same way, on the next route, some of the Pokemon that are wild will be higher level than our Farfetch'd, so a Repel would not be enough to get rid of all of the encounters. So you're pretty much guaranteed to get at least one encounter over the course of the next route. If we were 2 levels higher, level 18, we could get rid of all of the encounters. But just because of how many optional trainers we've skipped getting to this point, we actually are underleveled still. And as well, even with the perfect speed, Quacklin's base speed is actually not very high, like 60 or something. And so there are some encounters that we're not going to be able to run away from, and so it can be kind of threatening. Most of them are in the route after this route. So this is Route 9. We're going to be riding a Rhyhorn across the way. Can get some encounters through our Repel. And then after this, we're going to be entering Glittering Cave, which how Glittering Cave works is it works with stationary encounters, static encounters. So there isn't like grass per se, or like there isn't like a cave floor that you can get random encounters on. There are like shadows that you can walk into, and they'll generate an encounter. And those ones are typically higher level than you too, and there's a good amount that high of speed that will be higher than yours, and you may not be able to run away. Some of those include Onyx, Solrock, Lunatone, Kangaskhan. Onyx and Solrock especially are the bad ones. Those, if you can't run away from those can really just kill your run. So only one encounter there is very good. You typically expect to see 2. And Glittering Cave, basically how it works is there's 5 randomly generated shadows across the entire cave, and there are 8 spots they can be. I think it's 8 spots they can be, yeah. And we go through 5 of them, I think. 2 of them are to get the technically optional TM for Shadow Claw that we're going to use later in the run. So if you didn't get that, you could theoretically get a maximum of 3 encounters, and you can get 0. But just because of how the shadows play out, you cannot get less than 2 encounters in this cave. And so we've seen 3 so far. There's only one more opportunity to go. So here's Shadow Claw. There's only one more opportunity to go. So just the sheer randomness of how many encounters you can get in this section really plays quite a role on your pace. So 4 total here is definitely below average. We definitely got lucky here. You expect to see somewhere between 3 and 4, I think, within the cave itself. So I think you expect to see at least 5 for sure. So anything below 5 is great combined between the 2 routes. So yeah, as you can see, this Houndour is level 18. We're not, but even still, Sword Stance. Sword Stance is just like so powerful. We can just kind of set up to whatever we want. If we had worse attack, we would use an extra Sword Stance. So these two trainers are both going to be level 18. We're going to do another true double battle. And those Pokemon that we're going to be fighting against will be level 20. And the next gym, which is the only mandatory fight after this fight, after the true double battle fight, level 25. So, even if Farfetch were able to deal with the Rock Gym, which it would take a lot of levels, it would need to be maybe 28, 29 to even have a chance. We're going to be 19 for that fight, which definitely just not going to cut it. So double yawn there is kind of annoying. This Gulpin has Yawn, Amnesia, Poison Gas, and Sludge. It can only use, after you get Poison, you can get Poison on the last fight as well as this fight. After you get Poison, it can only use Amnesia or Sludge. Amnesia does nothing, so ideally you want to see Amnesia as much as possible while you're setting up to +6 attack. Unfortunately, we saw Yawn quite a bit. Even Poison Gas is like a better option than Yawn. But had to heal twice in that fight, and we're gonna have to heal our HP as well. This cave is a little bit weird in terms of how you play the fights because you actually don't typically want to heal to full. Like if I had a potion there, I would have just used that instead of the super potion. Because after this fight, we're going to want to do a death warp. So basically what that means is we're going to choose an encounter to die to, which will take us back to our last use center, which in this case will be the center that we entered briefly in the last town, Ambret Town. Since going back on the Rhyhorn is like incredibly slow. So this fight was very interesting. This is not a very normal fight. Typically, Esper will use Light Screen turn 1, but instead it chose to go for Psybeam, which is fast. This is like the fastest this fight can go. But also, as you can see, we are full HP coming out of this fight, so our Death Warp is slated to be much slower than you may expect it to be otherwise. A lot of the time you end up poisoned. Poison can be very good for a Death Warp. But full HP is kind of, you expect to be dying for quite a while. But even still, this time is very good. Even if the Death Orb isn't the best. It'll still be a pretty decent time. You expect it to be probably a mid-48 Ambret or Death Warp split. Which, I mean, as you can see, that's ahead of my comparison there. But also, like, any 47 is fantastic. Any 48 is good. The final massive RNG swing is still yet to come with the capture of Hawlucha. So you want to just get as many runs as you can to that point. We actually got quite lucky here with our Death Warp. That's like basically the best you can expect to see. With our position, 3 heart stamps. So 47.58 is a very good time. We're gonna get out of here, get our TM for Rock Smash. Isn't actually required in this game. As you can see, it's not an HM, which HMs are, you know, subset of moves that typically are required, need for the field. You can still reuse Rock Smash in the field, even though it doesn't say HM. And we will use it in Victory Road to skip one optional trainer. We'll be teaching that to a Pokemon. Here's another rare candy. Again, there are not that many of them in the early game. These are the only two we will see for a long time. And our time on the roller skates is finally coming to an end very shortly here as we arrive at the bike shop. So, we're gonna register the bike and then we're gonna start setting up for our halucha catch. So, after we get on the bike, we're gonna enter the center here and we're gonna buy some dusk balls. We're gonna buy 2 dusk balls. And since we set our date to, or since we set our time, rather, to nighttime, the dusk balls boost is activated, and so any catch that we do at nighttime will be boosted by the catch rate will be boosted by 3.5x, I think, which is absolutely massive. That's like twice as effective as an Ultra Ball. And so it'll make our Halucha catch 55% to get in the Dusk Ball from full HP, and then around 85% after we weaken it once. So basically, the only struggle now with Halucha is just finding it. After you find it, you are extremely likely to catch it. And we get our Halucha first encounter, which is very, very good. It is a 20% encounter. Yeah, this run is incredibly good now. And you see me here trading my far-fetched IV calculator for the Halucha one. So yeah, any 51 Halucha is very good, but this is going to be a mid to low 51 Halucha. So this run is, I think this is probably my best run ever at this point. We're going to do some menuing. Slightly new thing here, I teach my moves before candying because I decide whether to use 1 or 2 candies on Halucha based on what I see in my stats. And so I deem these good enough to skip the second candy. And what that will do is it'll get us some benefits later. It'll make our Halucha section a little bit worse, like ever so slightly worse. But it makes one of the sections later with Lucario, our final main, much more safe. And I think on this run I was just kind of craving safety. So that is also one of the most recent developments in the route, being able to do this one candy route for Halucha before you just always use both of your candies. But my Halucha is pretty okay. Decent attack, decent speed. So yeah, this is kind of like I think this is like a pretty fun gym. Like climbing walls and stuff. But one thing that is not fun is this gym leader. Grant, I would actually argue one of the hardest gym leaders in all of Pokemon. Just because of its placement where it is. And the Pokemon that he has. as I said before, the level curve bumps up massively in this part of the game. And this Amora is incredibly threatening. So we actually need to use Farfetch there. It's not just that, oh, I forgot to swap my Holucha to the front. We actually just need to swap. Yeah, we actually just need to use Leer on this Amora, because if we don't, then if we use a Swords Dance to set up on this Amora, it will just kill you in one shot with refrigerate boosted takedown. Makes it a like 100 base power or something like that. Ice type move. And then this, you have to kind of dodge a flinch here, which is kind of annoying. Thankfully we do. So that's, you know, the standard best fight you can get. So this run is very good. 54, I think it's my first 54 Holucha. Or 54 Grant split. I think at this point maybe I was regretting. Yeah, I think I was probably regretting skipping the second candy. It's like it's a decision that relies on a lot of different factors. Um, One of the biggest ones is a Heracross trainer in the fighting gym, um, where you have Wing Attack, which is 4 times super effective, but you're not guaranteed to kill the Heracross with Wing Attack on all attacks. In fact, it's not even the range that is worse than the guaranteed range is 12 and 16 or 75%. I think with this attack I don't even have that. So, and the problem with not killing that is it has counter. If you go for that range and miss it and it uses counter, you just die from full HP no matter what. Since it takes the damage that you've dealt to it and doubles it and throws it back at you when you use a physical move. And so yeah, so there's that, and then as well, I could have skipped the next speed. I picked up an X speed earlier. I could have skipped it if I had used both of my candies. I just would have gotten barely enough speed in order to be faster than the Mon that I needed to be faster than. But at the time, I didn't realize that. Still kind of a new thing. I kind of just wanted to do it to be safe again. It makes the section later significantly safer with the extra candy. But if this just goes well, then, you know, doesn't really matter. I probably take the safer approach here as well. You can fight another trainer before the Heracross person before that I mentioned in order to get a higher level. I'm curious to see if I actually do that. And also, I guess I can, where are we? I can't really frame advance very easily, but it's fine. The Masquerain that I fought before, that was another one of the death warps that I mentioned. And so, the alternative, would be to go back to that route where we caught Holucha after beating Grant. That was the whole reason we went up and entered that center, by the way, before catching Holucha. Is because we can do this. If we had gone up to that route again, there would have been Team Flare Grunts blocking the way. There would have been 2 of them that would have been required to fight. And so by death warping there, we can skip both of those fights. Thankfully, we're going to be getting access to fly relatively soon. So this will end up being the last death warp that we need to do. So this section is actually pretty scary as well with the one candy strategy. You saw that I hugged the bottom of that room before. That's not normal. Typically, you would do a diagonal input and talk to him diagonally to save him from running all of those steps. But I did it that way because, again, I wanted safety as much as possible. And when you're at level 22, you can get lots of encounters. Most of the encounters in Reflection Cave are level 22 or above. Like 80% of them are level 22 or above. And thus you can get them through a repel. And now that we've talked to this lady without getting an encounter, we're going to get to level 24, and level 24 is higher than all of the levels in the cave. So we are safe from here, from encounters. And level 24 is actually one of the points that we need to get to after this fight. Not just for the encounters, although it definitely helps a lot not having encounter potential going through this next section. But for the next fight there's a Chimecho. Chimecho is a psychic type. It has confusion. It does well over half damage. And without Fling, which we get at level 24, it cannot kill it in 2 turns. So we would need to do some very weird strats to not lose significant time by not having level 24. So we definitely need to use at least one candy to hit that mark. So now we can just Sword Stance and then Fling our Jaw Fossil. Yeah, so we just have to dodge a critical hit or a confusion instead of having to tank 2 confusion somehow with massive Spadef or using an X special defense. Just, nothing is as convenient as what we do now, easily. And level 24, extra good, because we have to do that extra movement now in this current route to get the black belt, which that is a lot of extra steps that you would be risking encounters on. So, level 24 is like pretty non-negotiable. It's like one of the only non-negotiable levels in this entire route. When I was looking through different experience routes that we could potentially use for Hawlucha, for Lucario, this was one that stood out. It's just kind of one that you can't really work around. I tried a lot of different ways, you just can't really do it. And the black belt will manifest itself on the Lucario section a lot more. It'll help a little bit in the Hawlucha section, but not notably enough, really. It'll help us with 1 damage range in the grass gym. A weird spot about getting a black belt from before is it puts that walker in a weird spot, which is kind of annoying. So typically you kind of just have to wait for it. And also just because you're waiting a random amount of time for the spinner that you saw before the black belt, he can just be in different spots sometimes. So you kind of just always have to be ready for where all the positions are for the trainers, regardless of what you know. So welcome to the Tower of Mastery. So you saw a Mega Lucario statue there. That is more relevant than ever in this current route. On the Lucky Egg route, we only needed to Mega one time for a fight very late in the game. On this route, we opt to Mega many times. So we actually get to see Mega Lucario quite a lot in this route, which is kind of cool. It actually loses less time than one might think, than we even thought. Before, when we were using Lucky Egg. It only loses 8 seconds every time you Mega, which, if you don't know, in context, that is a little bit slower than 1 turn worth of actions. A turn in Generation 6 is about 5.5 seconds, typically, depending on whether it's just setup moves or an attacking move, whatever. So the metric we used when routing this is if a Mega saves either 2 turns, 2 or more turns, or 1 turn and makes the fight notably safer, then we would do it. And that actually came up quite a lot. Mostly the second option, 1 turn and a little bit safer, because with the lack of experience, you end up being lower level, taking a lot more damage, and so if you're not killing something, you're putting yourself at risk. So this fight relies on it using either Fake Out or Light Screen, which is pretty likely 90+% easily. And then we kind of just encore it until we're done setting up. Actually quite a fast fight with all the setup moves that are being used. So we get to +6 like pretty instantly. Just the power of how fast Swords Dance actually is. That was kind of scary. So in a vacuum, you actually would heal before this fight. I was at half HP. I was guaranteed to die to Psybeam if it used it, but it doesn't seem to have any sort of AI regarding that, and it greatly benefits speedrunners to wait to heal, especially in this case because I can just heal straight to full from a very low HP, and I am somewhat likely to only have to heal once more in the entirety of the gym. And that can be on Karina now as well, because we're going the X attack as we said before. No longer have the X attack. That is what we would do before to get to +3 attack for that fight. But instead we can use the turn that it basically is guaranteed to Fake Out anyway, to heal the full if we need to. So I think I will probably opt for that, depending on, I forget how much HP I end up having by that point, but I think that would be the sensible play to do that. Another option is I think if I didn't get Quick Attack there by that Absol, I think I would instead opt to heal on this fight, since the second Pokemon is Mienfoo, which again is very likely to Fake Out. So I would probably heal here since I don't need to. Just, it saves a little bit of time to do it the way I did. You might as well. But just because if I had done that on on this run, I would have not been full HP. I would have been pretty far from full HP, actually, if I had healed in the fight, since the maximum HP you can heal is 60 from Soda Pops. And not our maximum 83 HP. So yeah, this fight, after this fight, I'm going to have to make a decision. I'm very curious to see what I choose to do, whether to go straight to the Heracross trainer, which the movement to get to that is faster, you save time on movement, versus going to the other trainer first and getting level 28 before Heracross. Very curious. I feel like I'd probably fight the other guy first, actually. Since I also don't survive, or I might survive a takedown. Takedown is Heracross's most damaging move that isn't counter. Yeah, okay, so we're doing the alternate movement. Actually did it very well. That's not something you practice very often, so that's pretty cool that I nailed that. Yeah, so I mean, sometimes you're not faster than this sock after a low sweep, because my speed is so good I don't have to worry about that. But that may be a factor in determining whether you would fight this trainer before or after, since you would be a level lower doing it the way I'm doing it right now. Unfortunately, we have to use Flying Press, which we just taught, rather, on this Hariyama. It's only 95% accurate. If I were to miss that, I would have died. So yeah, now that we're level 28, we can fight this Heracross stress-free. It's guaranteed to die at level 28 with this attack. Well, that's not great. So yeah, it goes from, I think, what would have been an 8 and 16 range with this attack. With the one extra level, it goes to guaranteed. So yeah, in this position, I definitely will be healing turn 1 on the Karina fight. And something we can also do, before we would just use it in positions where we would have, like, not full HP, but, like, not enough damage to warrant actually healing. You could encore the fake out. So we're going to heal here, it's going to use fake out. You can encore the fake out. Because we're going to +4, it is just worth it to do that. It just saves time to do that. And if we don't get damage from this Hawlucha, we are slower than this Hawlucha. We just won't have to heal at all for the next section. So that's the incentive there. So that's one of the cases where we would like to have an X attack. Technically, it is a little bit better, but that's the way you deal with not having it. Flying Press there is quite unfortunate, but it's okay because we're menuing anyway, so I can just heal in that menu. Still a very good run for sure. Very, very good run. So yeah, pretty shortly we're gonna have to teach a lot of TMs in one menu. And so it makes a fine time since we're already opening the menu to use soda pop and heal full. Again, the fight that's coming up is basically identical to the other one with the Meow Stick, whatever. Fake out. You don't necessarily need to be at full HP, but it's different because you have to be full HP, basically full HP, afterwards for Ramos. So you might as well heal the full while you already have to menu anyway. So there's a Swizzle again, and we're going to make another detour to get the TM for low sweep. That is pretty important. Low Sweep is what we will use as our primary fighting type move on Lucario until we get access to Aura Sphere at level 42. It starts with Power Up Punch, which unfortunately Power Up Punch is not quite strong enough to just kill things by itself. So we have to get Low Sweep. So we're finally going to be getting our Lucario here. Aside from the fact that Lucario is just a very good Pokemon, gets access to very good moves. Being a mixed attacker in this game is huge. Fighting coverage in this game is huge. It also has set stats every time, and they're good stats too. So we always have 25 attack neutral, 25 special attack neutral, and 31 IV speed with a plus nature. Which all of those are extremely, extremely important. So Lucario is just the obvious choice for a main. It just saves so much time over every other Pokemon. Even if we had to catch something like this, like if we were given the opportunity to like catch a Pokemon with, you know, set stats, set good stats, has a Mega, whatever, it takes like an extra minute to catch, it would still be worth doing. Lucario is just very, very good. And nicknaming Lucario is the new thing for speedrunners in later gen games. Because it was previously thought that the text moved fast enough that nicknaming your Pokemon wouldn't save enough time. But upon timing it thoroughly, it actually does save a little bit of time. Not nearly as much as early games, as said before. But it saves 5-10 seconds over the course of the run, since you save. So text prints at 6 characters per frame in Gen 6, which is extremely fast. And it just so happens that nicknaming Lucario 1 character saves 6 characters. So basically you save 1 frame every time Lucario's name is printed. And since this game runs at 30 FPS, if you take the amount of frames that you save, divide it by 30, you get the amount of seconds that you save, and that ends up being around a little bit less than 10 seconds over the course of the run. So yeah, we're going to teach Rock Smash, Strength, and Surf to the Lapras we just got. Lapras specifically will be useful in a fight later on. Otherwise, we could just teach all of this to, say, a Squirtle that we pick up from Sycamore. But Lapras specifically we will need as part of a fight strategy later on. And we're going to teach Lucario some moves. And if we haven't already, we're going to give Hawlucha the black belt, which that serves two purposes. One, it will help us with a range on the Simisage in Ramos's gym. And second, it's important that we put it on one of our Pokemon. Even if we didn't put it on Hawlucha, we would have put it on probably Lapras or something. That's funny. Because swapping items between Pokemon, like in that menu there, is significantly faster than just like, say Lucario has a Lucario Knight, right? If we were to equip the black belt on Lucario, there'd be like a text box like, oh, Lucario's holding the Lucario Knight, you sure you want to swap items or whatever. So doing it the way that we're doing it, by just like, you would just click and drag items within the bag menu, it saves significant time. It only takes about a little under 2 seconds to swap items that way, compared to what might be 4 or 5 seconds to do it the other way. And since we swap the items enough for it to be worth it, for sure. This whole thing is very interesting because prior to this route, item management was not even something you considered in this game, basically. You'd equip the Jaw Fossil, as we did, you'd equip the Soothe Bell, and then you'd equip the Lucky Egg on Lucario, and that was it. Keep the Lucky Egg for the entire time. Aside from one fight at the very end of the game. But in this route, you're switching items, not like all the time, but like you swap items quite a bit between the Lucario Knight and the Black Belt. So it is kind of interesting actually having to think about, you know, item management. Getting light screen here is huge. I opt to go for +6 here. Not necessarily the best thing to do. It is certainly the safer option, and as I was saying, I was seeking out the safer option in every single spot. I could have instead opted to just wing attack ×2 after encoring, and then flying press both of these Pokemon. But again, those are 95% accurate moves. Missing on the breaks in would be a death sentence. And also my attack wasn't... It would have been a damage range on Meowstic. A pretty good one, that +2, but a damage range nonetheless. So, what I did lose is a little bit of time on average, but gets rid of the case where you die. So here's our Simisage. Simisage is actually a pretty tough thing to kill normally. You would need... I forget the exact number. It's like 26 IV neutral or something. In order to guarantee that damage range without the black belt. With the black belt, it's almost all attacks. It's like 10 IV minus nature that it's guaranteed. So, it definitely significantly helps the chances of having to not heal within this gym. Like, basically how it's going to go from here is, it's just as simple as, if I get Poison Point from this Roselia, then I'll have to heal, otherwise I will not. And what Poison Point is if you use a contact move on a Pokemon that has it, it's 30% to poison you. And then basically the entire point of contention in this entire section. Getting poison point here loses you probably at least 10 seconds for sure. Maybe closer to 15. In cases where you wouldn't otherwise have to heal. And we get it, unfortunately. So there is actually a decision here to be made. Things you can do, you can... I think what I do here is I just heal the poison, since I still tank in acrobatics from Ramos' jump bluff. But you can also keep the poison. Since you don't know Holich's ability, so it can either be Limber or Unburden. And what Limber does is it blocks any chance of paralysis. And so, if you don't have Limber, the Gloom on the next fight is decently likely, so go for Stun Spore. And so that would lose you a turn healing that paralysis. And I think that would be in cases where you wouldn't also, like, if you have to heal as a result of poison anyway. So like in my case where like if I was a little bit lower defense, for example, or lower HP, and the poison tick from the Wormadam was enough to make me have to heal for acrobatics, I might consider keeping the poison on, and then after this fight, healing the poison and healing my HP in the same menu. That's the whole idea, right? You want to try and consolidate all of your healing into one menu, so that you're not losing time opening the menu extra times when you don't necessarily need to do that. So I think here it would have kind of been a wash, just because I did end up getting paralysis, which is unfortunate. And I learned that I don't have Limber. If I had Limber, it would have just said, "Oh, you have Limber. The Stun Spore doesn't affect you," basically. It can still certainly use Stun Spore even if you have Limber. So, yeah. So here's our acrobatics. It can be a little bit scary if you get crit. It can be a little bit scary in terms of the fight. You lose pretty significant time. We have to flying press this for our life, since wing attack does not kill. Still a pretty decent split, honestly. This is kind of where you expect the poison point split to be, around 1405. And because I took the safer option on that one rival fight, I lost a turn, so that would also explain that. And I got paralyzed by Gloom. So all of those things combined, even with all those things, it was still a decent split. So this is where the bulk of the time loss is for the Lucky Egg route, because the Lucky Egg is situated in a position where you would have to backtrack. You'd have to go back on a monorail, and go out of the monorail room, left and up to like a hotel. And that whole detour takes around 45 seconds. And then you have to get the Lucky Egg, you have to equip it, you have to, whatever. It would be a lot faster. It would be a lot closer, certainly, between the Lucky Egg and the no Lucky Egg route if you could actually consistently get the Lucky Egg before coming on the monorail, so that you don't have to backtrack and then fly back afterwards. Would be significantly closer, and Lucky Egg would probably win out, honestly. But because of how much time loss is involved in that, really makes skipping the Lucky Egg appealing as an option. So this is the route where wind could potentially make things a little funky. You'd be fighting against the wind the entire time, coming across to this section since it's blowing in your direction. So we have to swap our Pokemon to the front, swap items around, and then turn off the experience share. So Lucario has the black belt on right now. That was one of the route additions that was pretty recent. Before we would just have the Lucario Knight on the entire time. It doesn't help with much in this section specifically, the power plant section. It will guarantee one of the ranges, but that's about it. The first main incentive for the black belt is what am I saying? Yeah, okay. In Frost Cavern, which is maybe like 45 minutes from now, where there's a Houndoom that does not die without the black belt, and we would instead have to Mega Evolve for it. Which Mega Evolve is kind of a big deal. And since there isn't really a point in between where there's one point where you kind of would benefit from Mega Evolving, but it's not that big of a deal. So in between, you just would you just have the black belt on the entire time. So we're gonna have the black belt on for quite a while, even though it doesn't really help with anything either way. So this section is incredibly volatile as well. There are lots of opportunities to be confused, lots of opportunities to miss. Sucker Punch is completely ideal here. It's like the only good move that Kroga can use, basically. Mud Bomb without an accuracy drop is also okay. But Sucker Punch is by far the best. Yeah, lots of RNG here. We've already seen 2 different RNG spots. The first was the Houndoom on the grunt we faced outside. That can choose one of 4 moves: Bite, Beat Up, Odor Sleuth, or Fire Fang. Fire Fang is the only one that's actually bad. Fire Fang basically makes you have to heal by itself. So if you see Fire Fang, you just have to heal when you wouldn't. That's it. This Mightyena is the one that is guaranteed. It can be pretty scary to not kill it, just because it has access to Roar, which can send out another Pokemon that can be pretty time loss. So just nice to guarantee that damage range. And then there are 2 Golbats coming up on each of these trainers. Both of them can confuse you. Both of them can do damage to you. The name of the game here is not having to heal. Having to heal more than once is kind of a problem. whether it be confusion or HP or whatnot. Air Cutter is good. Air Cutter crit isn't great, but our HP is high enough that we can not really have to worry about it. You want to be entering the final fight of the power plant with at least like 20 HP or so. And Golbat is like the last major thing that can damage you for the rest of the power plant. There's like fake out sucker punches here and there. That can add up if you get a lot of them, but they each do like 6 damage or so. So you really would have to get a lot. So this AP is perfectly fine from this position. Swallow, the most damage Swallow can do is with Body Slam, which also does around like a little less than 10 damage. The threat there is obviously paralysis if you get paralyzed. That would also make you have to menu. But I can also use things like Encore or Amnesia, both of which do nothing. So yeah, so both of these Swallows need 5 Bone Rush hits to kill. Because it does have Encore, it makes it not worth it to Swords Dance, where we probably otherwise would. So it's Amnesia, which is great. Yeah, Body Slam Para is like your worst nightmare here, basically. That and Fire Fang from Houndoom. Just one action making you single-handedly have to heal no matter where you are, health-wise, is kind of a nightmare. So contrary to the other Swallow, this one actually can die in 4 hits, technically. The damage range is not particularly good, but it is possible. Amnesia again. Unfortunately, we only got 2 hits, and those rolls are pretty bad. You don't expect to kill from here. Double 2-hit and Encore is kind of lame. Just because we would have rather finished with Low Sweep or Rock Tomb, for example. So yeah, from here, after the Swallow, we are basically guaranteed to not have to heal, which is great. So this power plant went very well. Did not have to heal at all, actually. So, very, very good power plant. No misses or anything. There is one final step in that the final trainer with the Mightyena can do. It typically will use Scary Face, which does nothing because you're still faster than it after the Scary Face. But it can also use cringe things like Roar or Swagger, both of which lose you time. Swagger doesn't necessarily lose you time if you just go for it and just it works, but oftentimes you will opt to heal or do something. But yeah, Scary Face is easily the most likely outcome. It's definitely over 50% to happen. And after this section, we come to Clement's gym. And Clement's gym is one of the worst parts of the run, RNG wise. Just because of how there are a lot of potential death points, a lot of just, random RNG swings, pretty much entirely caused by Bone Rush. Both its inaccuracy and its inconsistency in terms of how much damage it does. Kind of really have to get lucky in order to get a good split. So, very good split. Only bad thing was the Swallow Bone Rush. The double two-turn was not the fastest. And got a bunch of sucker punches everywhere. But nothing too bad. Again, all you really care about is just getting through this without having to heal too many times. So, interesting fact about what's about to come up is that we actually did find that changing your date to something specific does actually do something. We found out that weather actually plays a part in whether wind shows up or not. So while wind in this direction doesn't really do much. It'll slow my movement speed a little bit coming down here, but nothing crazy. We actually found out that certain weathers just don't have wind, and weathers caused by date. So you can not have wind on either way if you set your date to something specific. Which is not something we even would have encountered before, because it just had to be Valentine's Day, or else you would not get your sweethearts. The Eiffel Tower. Welcome to France, everybody. I hope everyone's excited for Legends ZA, which will be out very shortly. We're gonna get to come back and experience this region once again. Well, I definitely feel like I really like this game a lot, especially as a speedrun. I really like that we're going to be able to experience it again, though, because I think there are definitely some aspects of this game that maybe were not perfect, and I think can be touched upon in terms of, I guess, the storyline. I think a Pokemon Z version would have created some closure. But I think we're going to get some closure with this game in terms of the storyline, which I think is going to be really nice. And also, like, I think a lot of people just kind of, don't really think about this game very often. But I think this having more of a spotlight will be kind of good. That range is very difficult, by the way. Normally you need 3 Bone Rush hits to kill that Dedenne, but with a critical hit you can still kill it with 2, but it's only 12% to kill. So that was very lucky. Same kind of thing for Raichu on the second fight. You need 3 Bone Rush hits normally to one-shot it. But it can also die with 2 hits and a crit. Very nice. So actually, fun fact, the main reason why we keep Bone Rush, I think if it wasn't for this thing, we maybe would consider teaching like Bulldoze or something, or Dig, or nothing, honestly. Is because the Clemont fight is significantly benefited by it. There is a Pokemon with Sturdy on that fight, which means that you can't kill it in one attack ever, unless you use a move that attacks more than once, like Double Kick or Bone Rush or what have you. And so Bone Rush allows us to just completely get rid of that Pokemon. That Pokemon is quite a big threat. It does a lot of damage. So by just using Bone Rush on it, you just kill it in one hit. You don't have to give it a turn. It's super nice. And other moves obviously can't do that. 5 turns on the Ampharos is huge. Ampharos is another very large threat. You need 5 hits to kill it. And if you don't kill it in one turn, it's very likely to use Confuse Ray. And you often have to hit through the confusion. Or if you don't hit through the confusion, you have to heal it off, and it's a whole thing. So split has been effectively perfect so far. You don't ever see that very often. So yeah, so that Ampharos is one of the death points in this section, and the other is the Sturdy Magneton that I was just mentioning. If you miss Bone Rush on that Magneton, you typically die. Because it does well over half of your health with Thunderbolt. And oftentimes you aren't at full HP like I'm at right now because you don't get perfect RNG in these fights. So also one interesting thing that we did not expect at all when creating this route is that so there's this Emolga on this lead, has both Aerial Ace and Volt Switch. You will like pretty much always get Volt Switch on the Lucky Egg route. We just kind of assumed that just because it did more damage. I just got Aerial Ace there. And the reason for that is because it turns out at some levels, Aerial Ace and Volt Switch just do the same amount of damage. They're the exact same rolls. It's like it's very random when it happens. Like at 40, for example, if I was 40 going into that Emolga, Volt Switch would do more. It would always use Volt Switch. And then again at 41, they would do the same amount of damage. And 42, which is where the Lucky Egg route is, Volt Switch does more damage. So if you didn't look at this before, which I don't see why you would look at this if you weren't, you know, expecting to like save time doing this. Aerial Ace saves like 7 seconds or so if you see it over Volt Switch, because You save having to watch Emolga switch out. So yeah, so it's 50-50 see Aerial Ace or Volt Switch. You want to see Aerial Ace. I missed on that Emolga and still got Aerial Ace, which is good. That saves a little bit of time, I think, over just getting Volt Switch. So that was very, very, very close to a perfect split. Very close. Just hit the Rock Tomb there. Yeah, a pretty unbeatable split. Alright, and with that, we can thankfully say goodbye to Bone Rush. We're going to be teaching over that momentarily. Thank goodness. We're going to teach Shadow Claw instead, but Shadow Claw is a very, very good move. Ghost type hits a lot of things that fighting types doesn't. Like for example, we're going to be fighting the rival again right after this. Calum still has a Meowstic from before, and he now has a Delphox, which is weak to Shadow Claw as well. So, having something that can deal with that pretty easily is kind of a big deal. Like we could have used what we had to beat the fight, surely. Bone Rush, Rock Tomb, whatever. But it just makes the fight a lot faster, and it's going to help with some other stuff later as well. We're going to teach Fly as well. The Lucky Egg route would have already taught Fly. It's just that there wasn't really a good spot for us to do it. It would have taught it in the menu where you actually equip the Lucky Egg. This wasn't really a time to do it that made sense until now. And we have to teach it. It's still actually not that soon where we have to teach it, but next 30 minutes we're going to be using it, basically. So another RNG point here, nothing serious, but Meowstic can use either Fake Out or Light Screen. Light Screen was the preferred outcome, or was not the preferred outcome before. Now it is. Because we previously were doing +1 attack on this fight. So we would X attack and then we would go, basically. Now we need +2. The +1 ranges are just too bad at the lower level. But the upside is, since we still have Low Sweep, we would have already taught over Low Sweep on the Lucky Egg route for Aura Sphere, which is a special move, and so Light Screen boosts special defense. So this Absol on the Lucky Egg route very rarely dies with Light Screen up. So it's kind of funny that those two scenarios are kind of inverted now. Like now we greatly prefer Light Screen over Fake Out. Yeah, unfortunately did not get it this run, but that's not the end of the world. Gonna lose some time. Thankfully I didn't get Psychic on the turn that he could have attacked me, which would have maybe had to heal. You got some weird movement coming up, but before that, we're gonna get our first rare candy in a full hour. Yeah. This one's very easy to get. It helps quite a bit. So yeah, so very weird movement. Just how the swamp works out in terms of movement, just kind of slows you down. So you just want to make sure that you're in the part where it slows you down as little as possible. This trainer right here can see you if you're not hugging the bottom there. So just have to be a little bit careful. And I also haven't mentioned yet, spinner passes. They're a little bit weird in some games. Like sometimes you have to do some weird setup in order to pass them safely. Um, Gen 6, X, Y, and ORAS, you basically just have to wait until they look away, and then you have enough time to react and move past them. So as long as you're patient, you can pass every spinner 100% safely, which is kind of nice, especially since this is just by nature a manipless run. So you don't have to do any sort of weird RNG manipulation to pass spinners. All right, so here we're gonna enter the fairy gym, which, given Lucario is a fighting type, it's a little bit less scary than you might think. Just because of how non-threatening her lead Pokemon is. Okay, that was a terrible pass. Never do that. And I think I realized that after I do that. I'm like, because that pass like scared the heck out of me. And so I think for the rest of the run, I'm just like, okay, I need to calm down. I need to calm down. And so I just started doing spinner passes a lot safer now, not taking any chances. Because again, this run is incredibly good at this point. It's very, very good. Can still realistically 337 at this point. Yeah, we could actually just set up completely on this fight, on the Mawile, and it would be a completely safe fight. But that's just not the fastest way to do it. So with 1 Iron Defense, you're supposed to lead Shadow Claw for the extra chance to crit, and we actually do get it. So that saves a turn over, not critting, basically. If we didn't get any Iron Defenses, we could just low sweep the Mawile, and it would just also die. If it just chose to double crunch instead. So typically you're two-shotting that Mawile most of the time, but we did get lucky there. And we can't kill this thing at +6, so we have to two-shot it at +4. He would die to a crit Dazzling Gleam there. So that was a very good split aside from the fake out. So would have been a gold for sure, but still a very good split. So we haven't had that many bad splits this run yet. The Karina split was a little bit iffy just because of all the safety stuff I was doing that loses some time. But nothing has been bad, for sure. Nothing has been bad so far. So next up, we're going to go to the Pokemon Factory, where Team Flare is currently situated. We're going to do yet another true double battle. And if you haven't been able to tell by now, we as speedrunners don't really like true double battles, just because it's just one extra thing that's out of our control, and we like to have things in our control. Unfortunately, Kalem's Meowstic typically leads Psychic, or typically leads Light Screen. We would want it to use Psychic. Oh, that's funny. I unmuted here. I think I was like, I think I thought I was gonna go live, and then just like ended up choosing not to. Because again, this run is like incredibly good. I was like very nervous. I promise you that. I've definitely made some mistakes um in the back half of this run so far. And it's very interesting that I'm noticing this. The dire hit strat that we currently I talked about it before. That we currently do in the current route. I actually formulated during this run. Like I was trying to find a dire. I found a dire hit that I was gonna pick up during this run. Like I looked up it up on Bulbapedia. So before I would have menued to heal there like 5 or 10 steps back from where I did, just so that the repel wears out at a good spot. But because I knew I was gonna get this, I just did it in front of the switch. Just very interesting to notice that. So yeah, you're gonna see me picking up the dire hint. It will be the first time I ever pick it up, is during this run. Alright, so one of the benefits of Black Belt here is that the 2-hit KO range on this Manectric with 1 Aura Sphere and 1 Psychic from Meowstic is significantly better. It basically wasn't possible before, but now it is. Yeah, you're not guaranteed to see Psychic on one of these 2 turns. It getting Light Screen off means that it's very likely to Psychic this turn if it doesn't get flinched. So yeah, we do get Psychic and it does kill. Very unlikely to kill without Black Belt. And those type of turns are actually weighted extra over a normal turn just because of the extra time loss from having to select an opponent to use a move on in double battles. There's extra lag in double battles. So, turns in double battles are definitely worth more. So just being able to save that is pretty nice. Bum, bum, bum. So I didn't talk about it before. Well, I guess, I mean, I'll just do it this way. So since GDQ, AGDQ 2020, there's only been 1 route change since it was last showcased, and that was that we started buying proteins from this Pokemon Center. And that was pretty much right after GDQ. The next route change after that was the route that I'm currently doing, the no lucky egg stuff, and that was only like a month or 2 ago. So these proteins help a lot with some of the ranges across the entire run basically. Especially helps in this run as well, but it made one of the biggest run killers from before basically obsolete. So here's the dire hit. And then after that, there was a route where you buy 8 proteins instead of 7, or instead of 6. Since seven was looked at, you could buy 7 pretty easily, which is what I did here. But the 7th wasn't really determined to do a whole lot for the old route. But the 8th was, so the 8th was routed into the Lucky Egg route, and that made the biggest run killer in the run obsolete from that point. And then now we're doing it in this route, or I opted to do it in this route on this run because it helps a lot with some of the other ranges. Not the same ranges, just because the experience route is entirely different, so we're dealing with entirely different stuff. But on this run, I chose to do 8 proteins as well. And I have the extra candy from before that I saved. So I have the most possible chance at getting like all the good ranges throughout the entire... Oh my gosh. Wow. That is incredibly unfortunate. I forgot about that. So yeah, the Lysander 2 split has a lot of different ranges that can potentially kill you if you miss them. And those will all be guaranteed on this. Aside from a couple. But everything is better, for sure. Yeah, Lysander 2 has a lot of potential run killers, normally. And so, the reason why that was so unfortunate is you want to pick a wear-out spot on that repel that won't advance the cycle of a spinner too far will they will see you. Typically that repel is like a little bit later. Like I mean like a little bit later, like 5 or whatever steps. So I think what happened was I took too many steps. Like more steps than I had expected getting the dire hit. And then the repel wore out. If that repel had worn out 1 tile later, I would have been seen by that trainer. But because it was on that exact tile, I could afford to back out and not have to worry. Okay, so this is a very scary spot. I think I opt to heal. This Pokemon has 2 moves that attack you. Thunderfang and Bite. That is really troll. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty annoying. That's still better than getting Roar, which Roar is still a possibility. If you get attacked on the true double battle from before, it kind of puts you in a weird spot where you have to do stuff like that. That damage range on the Manectric is only 6 and 16. So if you can be put in positions where you may have to risk Roar, risk dying to something, some attacking move, just based on where your HP is. If you don't get acrobatics on the Golbat, you can also just set up an extra time. Like say you get Mean Look, for example. You can just set up the +4 and then one-shot the Manectric, guaranteed. Here is the other PP up. Both of these are for Lucario's close combats. We're going to be using those like in about a little under an hour. because we actually don't get close combat for a little while. And so we also use 3 proteins there, as you saw. Typically the old route would not use any proteins before Olympia. The whole bit with Olympia, if you don't know, is that if you give Olympia a turn, it is most likely to use the screen, reflector light screen, that corresponds with the attacking stat of yours that is higher. And so, even though we've been attacking with physical attacks the entire time, basically, Lucario's base special attack is higher than its special attack. Lucario's base special attack is higher than its attack. So it will, in a vacuum, it will use light screen most of the time. Even though we use attacking moves the entire time. Which you can't really say that. That's why being a mixed attacker is so good, so that you can do stuff like this. Because most of the time you will face the screen that corresponds with the attacking set that you're using, and so you have to play around that. So what I'm getting at is basically a long-winded way of saying, if I had used all my proteins there, it would have used Reflect most of the time, because my attack stat would become higher than my special attack. So, opt to use some now, some later. And the reason that we use some at all now is because the Executor on the only mandatory trainer in the Psychic Gym is an Executor, and it can be very, very threatening if you don't kill it in 2 shots. And so those proteins significantly increase the chances of killing it in 2 shots. With the extra candy I got, actually will guarantee that, which is really, 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 really nice. So Dire Hit comes out here. If I were to get Shadow Ball or Disarming Voice, I could skip Mega Evolving. And so that would save 8 seconds, basically. So this fight is a little bit different in that sense. It actually is a little bit better, honestly, than it was before. It's just that you have to pick up the Dire Hit is the only bad part about it. Since before we were doing +3 Mega Evolve, and we had to do a Mega Evolve because we're slower than the Jolteon, so that is what you would have to deal with if you didn't Mega Evolve, is that you'd be slower than Jolteon. But if you have high enough HP, it's not really a threat. But Dire Hit plus Swords Dance does more damage than +3. It does effectively +4, which is enough to kill the Jolteon without Mega Evolving. So that's the difference there. Unfortunately, we weren't able to skip the Mega, which, I mean, considering this was the first run with doing all of these strategies, I'm not actually going to lose significant time. Of course, I did get that. I did get the Dire Hit, so that is something, but that is like real-time loss. There's the Repel wear out. So here at the Executor, because we have level 48, we actually can Swords Dance. Which, as I mentioned way back when, on the Corphish, like super far back, Swords Dance is faster than attacking moves. So if we have the opportunity to do +2 and then one-shot something, if it is guaranteed to kill, we might as well do that. +2 Shadow Claw is a little bit less damage than 2 +0 Shadow Claws. But because both of those are guaranteed to kill, you prefer to do +2 because it's faster. It seems like we also got... There's also some weird AI testing going on right now with this next fight. We're just trying to figure out how the AI works. Because as I said before, the screen is incredibly likely. Like light screen is very, very likely with higher special attack than attack. However, if you are, as far as you know, if you are dead to all rolls of psychic, it will use that instead. But if you're not dead to all rolls of psychic, it will never use it. I think that is what we currently think. So at level 48, you actually should encounter that scenario quite a bit, where you're not dead to all rolls of psychic. But I actually did get high rolled here from the Executor, so I am dead to all rolls of psychic. Which is kind of lame. Either way, it's safer to heal anyway, so. And you have to heal at some point anyway, as well. There's the light screen. And one thing about being at low HP there is that, again, if you're dead to all rolls of Psychic from this Meowstick, it can choose to instead go for Psychic instead of Fake Out. So that can be pretty nice as well. Alright, I'm going to quickly use the restroom. I'll be right back. Alright, so all that you missed is basically, so I Mega Evolved for the Scrafty on that first grunt there. And the reason for that is, That is one of the biggest run killers on the other route, because it is on the Lucky Egg route, it's only a 5 in 16 range to die at a regular Aura Sphere. And if you do not kill it, you're 1 in 4 to just die from full HP. And considering you can't kill it on this route, it's 0 in 16 to die. You Mega Evolve to guarantee it. Again, the whole principle of 1 turn saved and it's safer. There you go, 1 turn saved and it's safer, and that's why we Mega Evolve. Black Belt, in this case, if we were to equip the Black Belt, it would guarantee it. But it is just not worth it because we have to Mega Evolve for this fight. So you would have to menu alone just to swap the items, which pretty much cancels out the time loss. Also, I think it actually no. It's like that. I don't think it's guaranteed with Black Belt. I think it's likely, but it's not guaranteed. So yeah, this is basically the same exact fight as the Lucky Egg route, where we have to switch out to Lapras, which is the whole reason we get it, so that I can tank an Earthquake, and then it will use Outrage because it is its most damaging move against Lapras. And Outrage, if you don't know, is a move that kind of locks itself in for 2 to 3 turns. So by dying to Outrage with Lapras, we can go back into Lucario and guarantee that we get Outrage on the first turn, which is all we need to set up to. So yeah, so that's gonna be it's the same principle as the other route, except we have to Mega Evolve as well. Both to guarantee the KO on the Lucario, or on the Gyarados, not even close. As well as to outspeed the Pyroar on that fight. Pyroar will just kill you if you are slower than it. So this fight is one of the, without the extra candy, this is one of the scariest fights. Because I get Sucker Punch here. Yeah, I get punished for not healing before the fight. Because I get put into a range where I have to heal. But yeah, this is a damage range without the extra level. And if you miss it, you die. It's pretty good, it's like 85% or something to 2 a KO. But yeah. And same kind of thing with the Toxicroaks, although if you miss it, you almost certainly don't die. So here's the rest of the proteins. With those proteins and the extra level, both of the Toxicroaks on, well, it's not this fight, but the fight afterwards, they're each 93% to die into 2 Shadow Claws. Upgrade from the 79%. But yeah, having Aura Sphere is like really, really nice for a lot of these. So it's like just enough to kill all this stuff. There's a lot of dark types within Team Flare. So again, fighting coverage is like kind of crucial. It's like the only way to deal with like every single thing basically in the Team Flare section except for these Toxicroaks. Which is why we have Shadowclaw. And Golbats, which we have Roxanne for as well. It's a pretty lousy roll, unfortunately. Nasty Plot is really nice, though. It has a Mud Bomb, which does pretty significant damage and would make me have to heal. Again, the name of the game in these kind of sections is just heal as little as possible. Typically everything has random AI. Golbat, we're going to face a Golbat in a second. Only has really one threatening move, which is Acrobatics. You can also use Air Cutter and Mean Look, both of which do effectively nothing. Air Cutter is fine. We're in a little bit of a... Ooh, that is really lame. That is really bad. See, that would have been a really nice position. Although it may end up not mattering, actually. It is possible that it may not matter. Because we have... So the next fight, there's another one of those Toxicroaks. It's the exact same fight. I can Mud Bomb, I can Shut Fucker Punch. Nothing too substantial. Still in 93% damage range. And then after that, we have a Weavile, which we are slower than. Mud Bomb is, yeah. So Mud Bomb kind of seals that we're going to have to heal at some point. Unless we get a little bit lucky. So Weavile has 4 moves. Quick Attack, Ice Shard, Night Slash, and Low Sweep. Those first 3 moves do about like 15 damage, about 15 damage each. And then Low Sweep does like 80. And it's random AI, so we don't know what it's actually going to be, but you have to prepare for the worst. So if we get one of those other 3 moves and we get a low roll on it, we can potentially tank 2 hits from Crobat on the next fight. Ice Shard. So 75, so I think when I did this run I didn't have the ranges exactly finalized for this higher candy route. So you are a level higher for this Crobat. Typically, at the lower level, for example, Air Cutter does 39 max, so you'd expect the maximum for 2 Air Slashes to be 78. Which is, you know, a little bit higher than what I have. There's a 3-minute break coming up, where I will skip it in this case, just for the sake of, you know, time. Just so I can succinctly explain everything, because I mean this whole time during that break I'm thinking about whether I should heal again, play it safe, or go for the chance to not die to 2 air slashes. So I think what I ended up doing is I ended up deciding that if I got a high roll on the first air slash that I would heal, and if I got a low roll then I would go for it. Because on the lower level, you are pretty likely to die at 75. Not pretty likely, but like decently likely to die at 75. A higher level, I was thinking it's like probably got to be very unlikely. And dying on this fight is very punishing because you Mega Evolve, and if you die, you can't Mega Evolve again. So you have to do the fight another way, and it may not even be possible, I don't know, if you die. So 30, what was it? 34 on the first one. So yeah, that was a pretty easy decision. And then 37 on the second one. So yeah. So now I'm gonna PC heal, so I don't ever have to heal now. Gonna enter a center and I'm gonna enter a center, withdraw all my Pokemon, and then heal Lucario in the process. Here's another 1.5-minute break that I'm gonna skip. So yeah, during the section has a lot of in between, so like, especially that 3-minute cutscene, that's like plenty of time to like do whatever you want, like get a snack, go to the bathroom, whatever. So it's kind of nice. To have that within your game without having to like formally take a break or anything. And the reason we are even doing this, the reason why we're going into the PC to withdraw all our Pokemon, is because we're going to catch the legendary Xerneas soon. And how it works is if you have a full party, it will ask you whether you want to withdraw Xerneas or not. Otherwise, you don't get that choice. Xerneas will go into your party, and it will go to the front of your party for the next fight without even giving you a chance to choose. And that is really bad because Xerneas cannot handle the fight as fast as Lucario does. And it means we have to swap it back afterwards. And one of the biggest upsides of this, I mean, it's not like it's like a dangerous thing or anything, but that Golbat that I just killed is a very bad damage range without the candy. And it increases to a 15 and 16 damage range. So you expect to kill it, basically. Which is nice, because going into this into Lysander 2 with full HP is kind of... It depends on how much damage you take, but it's kind of required. Just because you want to leave the out open to to live an earthquake from Lucario if for some reason you don't get outraged when you should, which does happen sometimes. If that happens and you're not at full HP, it can be kind of bad. And also you have to heal for later fights anyway. So it really depends on how low you are. So again, same as the last fight, we're gonna be Mega Evolving, switching out to Lapras, coming back in, Swords Dancing Rock Tomb. Literally the same exact fight. Yeah, as long as you get Outrage, you don't miss Rock Tomb, you're chilling on this fight. Very frustrating, this Haunch Crow is like frustratingly close to dying to Aura Sphere. But we still have to Rock Tomb it, which is 95% accurate. Kinda lame. There's Lysander too. And so I forget whether I did it before this fight or after this fight. I guess afterwards. Gonna have to swap black belts onto Lucario. And heal if I need to. Again, it depends on how low I am, whether I actually need to heal. It really just depends on how well the second that one of these true doubles goes. Alright, and so here is where the biggest time loss in the entire run happens. I get Disarming Voice from Meowstic. Now, if you don't know, Disarming Voice is like, or Meowstic is like 99, 95, something stupidly high percent to use Psychic on Toxic Rook and just instantly win the fight. Instead it doesn't. I get Sucker Punch again on this Delphox, gets crit. If I didn't get crit, then Delphox would just take out the Toxic Rook also. And then Jolteon comes out, uses this charge, and makes me have to heal. So before it was a decision whether I actually had to heal or not, but now, unequivocally, you have to heal this HP. So this is by far the biggest time loss of the run. That was like easily 30 seconds, all in. Effectively the time length of a death. And then this fight can go a lot of different ways. Like the first double fight is like by far the least threatening double fight on average. This fight could be pretty scary. Roar is kind of slow. Whatever. This is a damage range with the extra damage. We get it, thankfully. And then most of all, this fight is incredibly threatening. This double fight with Scrafty and Houndoom. And the reason why it's so threatening is because both Pokemon can kill you in one shot if it chooses to. Yeah, if Scrafty picks High Jump Kick, it kills you. If Houndoom picks Flamethrower, it kills you almost all of the time. Um, so it's kind of just pick your poison. A little bit weird because I think, from what we understand, Houndoom is more likely to use Flamethrower on you than Scrafty is to use High Jump Kick on you, if given the chance, but also Meowstic tends to use Fake Out on Houndoom more often. There's a lot that goes into this fight. Typically, Scrafty likes to Scary Face, so you rely on that most of the time. And since you're faster than Scrafty anyway, you don't really care about Scary Face. And so, I think I'm at full HP here. Typically, yeah, I shouldn't have to heal unless I get unlucky. Most of the threats down here aren't actually all that threatening. Especially now. It's mostly just a matter of whether the admin fight with a Golbat decides to use acrobatics. Everything else here is pretty normal. So we start with the right one here because you would start with the top one normally, but she has a Manectric that has static, and we need to use a contact move to kill it. So we would be risking static. By doing it last, static makes no difference. We get a free heal after these 4 trainers. So just the consistency thing. Doesn't actually lose that much time to do it this way anyway, so. Okay, so Golbat, I'm at high enough HP where I shouldn't have to heal. Yeah, just guaranteed to not have to. Black Belt actually makes quite a big difference on this Swalot right here, because it allows us to skip a Sword Stance over the Lucky Egg route. And also it makes, because we do this fight faster, Spit Up, which is like the only move it can use, can only ever do a much less amount of damage. Like if it decided to use Spit Up here, which it did, you can see it did 30 damage with the defense drop from close combat. Whereas if you were to Sword Stance again, give it another turn to stockpile, drop from close combat, you'd be dealing, like, you'd be getting hit for like 80 or something. It's something way more. That is fascinating. No static. Again, static doesn't really matter. It's just time loss of seeing the words, basically. We have another minute and a half long cutscene, so you know what that means. Oh, it's actually less than that. So yeah, basically just gonna be throwing the Master Ball at Xerneas. Xerneas actually has a pretty elevated catch rate because you have to catch it. It's like part of the story. You have to catch it. So it's 45 catch rate instead of 3. However, we have the Master Ball. No reason not to use it. So yeah, if you were to just kill this, you'd have to it'd force you to re-encounter it again. And there's no incentive to kill it anyway because it doesn't give any experience. So yeah, you'll see here in a second, it'll give us the option of whether we want to withdraw Xerneas or not. So by not doing that, we can keep Lucario in slot 1. So nothing super important here, this is a pretty free fight. But something of note, I guess, is that we could Mega Evolve here and skip the setup turn that we're about to do. But we learned through doing this whole experience that we knew there was like a longer animation time for some Mega Evolutions than others. We couldn't really figure out why. But now we know it's because every time you Mega in a fight against a trainer that will use a Mega Evolution, you will get an extended Mega animation. It loses about 6 seconds on top of the regular Mega animation. So yeah, you can see here pretty substantial time loss, unfortunately, from that first admin double. We got another minute-long cutscene or so coming up. Less than I thought, again. Still like 45. We could skip all this too, honestly. Yeah, we basically just flew to Anstar City. We're gonna be going down here. This route's a little bit tricky. There is a bush that has Durant in it sometimes. that you have to hug the bottom to avoid. There's the PP-ups for the close combat. You have to hug the bottom here to avoid it. Then you have to hug the top here to avoid this optional. And you really have to hug both of them, or else you will be seen. Going up here to get a candy. Poorly. This rare candy was not in the Lucky Egg route. So this is a new rare candy. And has a very specific purpose that I will talk about later. It helps in multiple ways, but there's one specific purpose that we really wanted to get. Yeah, black belt helps a lot with this fight as well. And having the extra candy and the extra proteins helps a lot as well. This becomes a 13 and 16 damage range, which is pretty likely. Getting on the line of expecting to kill it with that kind of amount. And having this kind of HP coming into this fight, coming into the fights to come, is actually quite a big deal. Well, not as big of a deal anymore. These fights are a lot more chill with black belt. One of the single biggest incentives to use black belt in the first place was the Gudra on one of the fights coming up here. It's unfavorable range, like 5 and 16 or something, without the black belt. If you miss it, you die. And there's not really a great place to set up for it either. And then by setting up, you put yourself in danger for the next fight, since there's no intermediary portion where you can heal before the next fight. It just sends you straight in. So black belt makes everything so much nicer here. You can sweep this fight, you can set up on something very safely on the next fight, and then you get a free heal before the third fight. Yeah, so like before we had to set up on that Delcatty, and it can use Charm, and then you can get, it's like 50-50 to Charm, and then like you have to Swords Dance again in that case, and it's really, really ugly. It's really ugly. So one of the few downsides of having black belt here is before we were doing like for the next fight, we were doing a pretty safe fight that involved using the Mega for that fight. Because we have the black belt, there's no intermediary between these fights. We can't switch items or anything, so we have to use black belt for that fight. So the next fight ends up being, it's fast if it goes the way that you expect it to go. And this is also the same fight that it was in the Lucky Egg route. Basically involves close combating Trevor's Raichu turn 1 and hoping not to get static. And then you have to Swords Dance through the paralysis when you get static, and if you get fully paralyzed, you pretty much just die. If you don't get paralyzed, though, and you get Misty Terrain from Florges, it's a super fast fight. Yeah, this can either Misty Terrain or Moonblast. It tends to pick Misty Terrain over Moonblast, which is really nice. So even if you do get paralyzed, it could still Misty Terrain, and then you're just fine. It only makes a difference if you get Moonblast when you're trying to hit through paralysis. And one thing I realized that a little bit too late is that, well, in this section, for context, in this section, close combat PP is very much an issue. So we have to Rock Tomb some stuff in the Ice Gym in order to save close combats. On this kind of run, I maybe could have considered taking a free heal later on to not have to worry about that, just close combat whatever I want. Because missing Rock Tomb in some spots can be pretty devastating. So we finally arrived at the final town with the final gym in Kalos. You gotta go through these mystical woods that, if you like take the wrong way, you get like super lost. And then we arrive in Pokemon Village, which has the strangest theme in all of Pokemon. So yeah, now Wolfric will battle us. Again, this is the final gym. We fly back to the city, and I've been doing diagonals this whole time, but this is a spot. Wolfric's gym is a spot where diagonals can save quite a bit of time, because there actually is no other way to talk to the trainers in this gym without doing diagonal inputs. So if you're not doing diagonal inputs to talk to these trainers, you're just being seen, which is largely slower, like pretty significantly slower. So it's not just saving the steps, it's actually just, you know. Talking to trainers. And talking to trainers is, yeah, pretty sizable time save. So this gym is very much a spot where being a mixed attacker is quite a big deal. Like if we were just to have low sweep, for example, over Aura Sphere, which was something we were doing at some point during the early stages of this route. There's a lot of things that have a lot of physical defense and a lot of things that have a lot of special defense. So Cloyster is one of those things. Super loaded in physical defense, has bad special defense. Avalugg the same way. And then Cryogonal, which has massive special defense and bad defense, shows up a couple times as well. So having a mixture of strong strong special moves and strong physical moves is kind of a big deal for some spots. And also, yeah, this puzzle is something as well. Gotta be careful not to hit it a fourth time. A lot of these movements require 3 different hits of the same button. And if you hit it a fourth time, it rotates all the way around and you have to hit it 3 more times again. So yeah, just be careful. So yeah, so Cryogonal Cragonal is one of the Pokemon I was talking about that you have to Rock Tomb a couple times. And I think in both cases it has Confuse Ray. And this one has Random AI. Okay, I have to Aura Sphere here just as a bit because the range is like the same as Rock Tomb accuracy. But typically you'd Rock Tomb that. You have to Rock Tomb this as well with no PP. Alright, so Wolfric, potentially the easiest gym in all of easiest 8th gym, all of Pokemon. Especially easy for our Lucario. Just have to pick the right moves, hit your Rock Tomb, etc. Very goofy thing about Wolfric here is that his hitbox is 3 tiles wide, so you can do talks like that. Very, very funny. If it was one tile, you would do like a diagonal or something, but there's just really no reason to. It's very, very goofy. So the split was effectively perfect. Which is really nice. Yeah, even though Avalugg may look like super bulky, it's got like 40 special defense, so and I can just send any sort of special move at it and it will probably die. Alright, so there's our 8 badges, so we are going to be on our way to Victory Road and the Elite Four. Yeah, I think this route is a lot. I think one of XY prior to this route was one of the biggest speed runs that like scared people away. So because there's a whole problem with 3DS capture cards, which by the way you don't need a 3DS capture card to run these games for sure. You can just point a camera at your DS and there you go, you're good. But there's a lot of people prefer to have 3DS capture cards, which are extremely expensive. And then on top of that, there is various factors of this run that makes it rather unappealing to run. There's a lot of RNG checks that we've gone through a couple times now. And so I think the fact that this new route that is both faster and more consistent has shown up. You get, you catch Hawlucha like all the time as soon as you find it. has kind of brought new life to this game, which I think is really cool. So if anyone out there is interested um, in running this game, I think it would be a very rewarding experience. Especially when you're like first starting out, it's like I think it's a very cool route. There isn't much like it. It's like there actually aren't that many runs in PSR that fight the minimum possible trainers. And I think it's very, given the nature of XY and the nature of this route, I think it's very cool that this is one of the routes in Pokemon speedrunning that doesn't fight any optional trainers. So it's very unique for sure, both as a watcher and a player. So definitely would recommend this alongside some other games. Pokemon's just a cool speedrunning. It's a cool community. It's a cool. I don't know. The games are cool. It's just I don't know. It's a good time. I have a lot of fun doing it. So, if anyone's interested, feel free to join 3DS Pokemon speedrunning discords, Switch speedrunning discords. All just a Google away. If you just look it up, they'll probably have it in the descriptions as well. The links. So we're actually going to reteach Shadow Claw in this menu after we use our candy. And Shadow Claw it's like basically required for the back half of the game. There's some mons that, just you can't really deal with without it. It's kind of unfortunate that we have to like reteach it, but it is worth it. And just say thank God for reusable TMs is very nice. Very nice. Rock Smash is 1 in 3 to produce an encounter. Every time you do it, and Repels can't block it. You're also 1 in 3 to get an item, and you're 1 in 3 to have nothing happen. So that's the only time we'll be using Rock Smash. There will also be like a static sky encounter that appears sometimes that is also random. That we'll hopefully not see, but there is a chance. This is the most ridiculous thing ever. The boulder just like will not let you push it sometimes. That specific one. Ask any XY runner, they will certainly tell you that they've experienced that before. So, this is the first and only case in this route of Steadfast coming into use and actually being useful. So we stored that there because we need +2, we didn't, +1's not enough. And also, the speed boost from Steadfast, if we see Fake Out, means that we will outspeed the Jolteon on this fight, which is a big deal. Alright, and there's our third and final Rock Tomb miss of the run. 3 is definitely more than you'd expect in a run, for sure. That being said, all of the rock teams I missed were in spots where it wasn't particularly dangerous, so that's good at least. There are certainly plenty of deadly spots to miss rock tomb. Most of them are yet to come, actually. Any rock tombs in Elite Four, pretty fatal to miss. All I have to say is thank goodness they increased rock team's accuracy in this generation. Would be I don't think you probably would use return instead. You probably would, yeah, you probably would literally switch the entire route back to Lucky Egg because of that. Okay, that Leafeon is a damage range. Having full HP means there's an out to get a very fast fight on the next fight here, potentially, if you get lucky. Okay, no encounter here is great. That was where the encounter would show up. But yeah, basically if you get a critical hit on the Trevenant on the next fight, you can skip. I don't crit here, so you're gonna see what I mean, but you have to like switch out and like break the next Pokemon's sturdy and die and come back in, whatever. You save all of that. It saves about 20 seconds or so. The crit here. Curse is really nice though if you don't get the crit. Definitely the best option. Yeah, we switch out into Hawlucha, it will use Earthquake every single time. And then we weaken it with Wing Attack and break it sturdy, and then it kills it with Stone Edge. Since if we were at this HP, basically the idea of it is if you're not at full HP, then you will die to Earthquake from this thing. You need to be pretty much exactly full HP, and even still, you still can die. It still is possible to die. So yeah, you have to be full HP. And it'll if you get also if you get Will-O-Wisp miss, you also can do the fast fight. Those are the only two cases, because it has Shadow Claw, which hits you, Curse hits you, Will-O-Wisp hits you. We'll never use Wood Hammer, but that would also hit you. Alright, so this is what I was referring to before. Crit into sturdy, that's kind of annoying. So yeah, so the candy we used before is specifically for this Alakazam. We leveled to 65 before it, and then we outspeed it. We would not outspeed it otherwise. And if you give that thing a turn, it can use Focus Blast and just kill you from full, so... It also helps in some other spot than U4, like it'll give some better ranges and stuff. So overall, pretty good victory road. Just not getting any encounters is really, really nice. And so we're gonna bring our Bulbasaur with us, which is not normal. Normally you wouldn't bring anything. Just because it's an extra thing you have to bring to the Hall of Fame. It's an extra thing you have to kill in the fight after the champion. We have to die on that fight. Alright, so we're gonna go to Malva first, or no, yeah, Malva first, yes. This fight's a little bit different because we're gonna be Mega Evolving, and the reason is pretty much entirely because we don't outspeed the Talonflame, and we will never outspeed the Talonflame with extra experience. So it's pretty much entirely because we're slower. We have the attack to just pretty much do this exact same strats as no Mega. You just Mega for the speed, that's all it is. Although one nice thing is if Pyroar does decide to use Noble Roar, it means that you can just you don't have to set up again. And so you can theoretically leave this fight with full HP if you get Noble Roar. And then don't get Flame Body from Chandelure. But unfortunately we get Flamethrower. You actually are arranged to die if you get burned. And also, if you get hit low enough, you can be in range to die to Quick Attack. Which I was like, I'm pretty sure I was like 1 HP out of that range. So, thank goodness for that. So, at +2 you can Rock Tomb or Shadow Claw this thing. Might as well Shadow Claw since we just have the full restores anyway. And thankfully no Flame Body. Have to... The principle basically is you would like to Shadow Claw if you are at low HP anyway, you can just full restore and not lose any time. But if you get Noble Roar, you would like to Rock Tomb to avoid any chance of getting Flame Body, and then thus increasing your chances of leaving this fight with full HP and no burn. But the problem with that is +1 Rock Tomb with Mega does not kill Chandelure, so you have to Shadow Claw regardless, which kind of stinks. Alright, here comes Wickstrom. Wickstrom is a very complicated fight on this route. It mostly comes from the fact that, unlike the other route, Klefki does not die to +4 Shadow Claw. And in most cases, if you were to close combat it, which close combat certainly does kill, the defense drop is enough damage so that you would die to another hit from another Pokemon, so you can't really do that. So we'll see what happens here, and I'll explain what's happening as it's happening. So one of the other upsides of bringing another Mon is that you can get spikes. You don't get it here. Torment means you can't use the same move twice in a row. So we have to use Shadow Claw turn 2. That is the worst possible fight. So this puts you in a weird position. So you want to be hit at least once there. That I was a little bit weirded out getting double spikes after Torment there. So the remedy for that is finishing with close combat, so you take enough damage so that you're in kill range from this Aegislash. So you want to be in kill range of this Aegislash because if you don't get in kill range, it will use King Shield, it will harshly drop your attack, you'll have to pick another move because of Torment, and you basically lose the fight. It's the gist of it. So you want to be in kill range, you heal for the Scizor like every time because you're in kill range. It will always use Bullet Punch. And you come out of the fight with this HP, and you can go into Drasna with this HP every time as well. So that's the reason we do the order like this, is because you pretty much always come out of Wickstrom with pretty much this exact HP, and you can do Drasna at this HP without worrying too much. One concern I had here was, because I used Close Combat on both Klefki and Probopass, that means I have to use 2 Rock Tombs on this fight. Both of them for my life, basically. So an alternative to that is potentially you could heal before this fight, and then use another Swords Dance, and then the fight is safe. So that was a pace-dependent decision that I was pondering at this point. Because I wasn't sure whether I had 338 locked up if I was to heal. It turns out I would have gotten 338 anyway if I did heal here, but I do decide to go for the risk of both Rock Tombs. So the idea here is you Swords Dance, you Mega, and then you sweep the fight. And you have to Rock Tomb both Noivern and Altaria. Typically, you just have to Rock Tomb one of them, but because I used an extra one on Klefki that you normally wouldn't, I do have to Rock Tomb both things. Paralysis there is really, really troll as well. There's one Rock Tomb. And also we have to Mega here as well, because we are also not slower. We're also not faster than Noivern. But also the fight just works out this way as well, because Mega Lucario has the ability Adaptability, which boosts the power of fighting type moves effectively. So it's enough to save a turn over the alternative as well. So it kind of just works out. And then also, there is an additional risk you can take on this next fight, which my splits here account for that, but I don't end up going for it. It's like 75-ish% to work, maybe like 80. But if you don't get that, you die, and it saves about 6 seconds or so. And I determined I didn't need that to get the time that I wanted, so I just opt to go for the safety here. Basically all it is I set switch mode there before from set mode. You would instead not do that, and you would just switch out to your Bulbasaur right away and hope that it uses Earthquake. It uses Earthquake like large majority of the time. But if you get Dragon Dance, you just lose. You can't win the fight. You are slower and you die in one hit. So the fight here is effectively the same as the other fight, the Lucky Egg fight, except it involves switching out beforehand to get rid of both the Intimidate from Gyarados and the defense drop from the Close Combat that we're about to use, both of which are important. sort of switch out. Yeah, so the only decision making that weighs into what you decide to bring here is, for the most part, like how likely it is to, actually work. So Ice Fang's 95% accurate, which isn't great. Um, but the alternative is bringing something that has 100% accuracy of dying here, but then Torkoal may decide to use Stone Edge on the final fight when dying, which is like, Stone Edge is only 80% to hit, so that's really unlikely to work. And the reason you do Bulbasaur over Chespin, even though they're like pretty much the same, is if you decide to go for that risky strat that I outlined, you'd be getting hit for Earthquake, which is not super effective against Bulbasaur, but it is against Chespin. So it's just like a little bit of time save if you decide to do that. Alright, and then this is the final fight in the run. It is really, really troll because Diantha's lead is a Hawlucha, which uses either Sword Stance or Flying Press at 50% apiece, pretty much. If you get Flying Press, or if you get Sword Stance, I guess, I'll start with. If you get Sword Stance, you win the fight. You just close combat the next 4 things, and then Shadow Claw the last 2, and you win the fight. But if you get Flying Press, you get hit in a red bar. You have to Mega Evolve because you die. So Mega Evolving gives you like a little bit more defense. You die to Shadow Claw, or you get hit for over half. You get hit for over half with Shadow Sneak from her Gourgeist without the defense boost. And so then if you get hit for over half, then it will just use it again, and it'll just use it again, your heal, live, do lose. So you have to Mega Evolve, which is 14 seconds of time loss, because Diantha is one of the 2 fights in the run where she uses Mega Evolution, so it's the long animation. So you have to Mega Evolve here, which is 14 seconds of time loss for basically no reason. You have to heal on Gourgeist, which is another turn's worth of time loss, for a combined total time loss of about 20 seconds for getting Flying Press. Which, as you can see, is what I got here. So, this could have been a much better time, but I lost 20 seconds at the end. Unfortunately, it's just something you have to account for when going for, pace-based decisions. One thing also I did here was, at the time, somehow I didn't realize that Hawlucha died to +2 Mega Shadow Claw, which would mean that you don't have to Rock Tomb this thing, which is something I do here. Because the defense drop from... You need to get 1 less defense drop from close combat in order to live to Shadow Sneaks. You'll see Shadow Sneak will do a little bit less than half here, and then it will opt to use Phantom Force because it sees the kill with that, but not Shadow Sneak. So you now win the fight. So it's a very precarious, very precarious position that Flying Press puts you in, that Sword Dance you just completely ignore all of that. you just like win on the spot. But yeah, that's the run. So this was I was very happy with how I played this run. Got pretty good luck all around. Made some decisions that were like questionable, but most of the decisions I made, considering the time of this route, it's been 2 weeks since I got this time. The road has evolved a little bit since then. I think at the time I made nearly all of the correct decisions, if not all of them. So I'm very happy with this time. I don't think I will continue doing attempts for right now, unless someone beats this. But I'm down. I really like this game, so I'm totally down to keep playing it if I have an excuse to. This route was really great for that, because I had an excuse to play it again. And I'll skip this, but I'll explain what's happening as I'm doing it. Basically, there's a Hall of Fame sequence, and then Sycamore takes you to like your own parade for, saving the region or whatever. Um, you and your friends, you did it. There's no mashing or anything here. So it's like a good time to kind of reflect on your run, considering the run's basically over. Um, and then AZ is here. AZ is pretty common in the storyline of this game. You basically just have to die as soon as possible. And there's basically no variance in it. You can get burned by lava plume, which can lose like 2 seconds or so, but nothing super substantial. This loses like quite a bit of time over the other route because you have to bring another mon to die. But unfortunately, it's just by far the easiest way to beat Seabold, is bringing the extra Pokemon. Also, spikes. Having the chance of spikes on Wickstrom is kind of a big deal. Makes the fight a lot nicer most of the time. So yeah, Bulbasaur gets Lava Plume most of the time here, which is nice. And that's the run. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I really, really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, stick around. There'll be more speedruns at some point. Um, and yeah, talk to you guys later. Bye bye.